What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. So, what I'm going to be talking about in this episode of Joe Winko Talk is another story from my childhood life. Yeah, sorry to bore you guys. But what made me think of this was, I've been noticing many back-to-school commercials on TV, and even when I went to Walmart yesterday, I saw a bunch of kids buying school supplies and everything with their parents, and it made me remember the time back when I was in elementary school. Oh gosh, I feel so old right now. But, just for the record, the names in this episode of the names that I'll be mentioning in this episode of Joe Winko Talk will all be different from the real names, just so I don't get in trouble at all. So any names you hear in this video are all fake, but they're based off of real ones. So, I went to a Catholic school, a private Catholic school called St. Sherry's, and I started there in year 2000 when I was in K4 kindergarten, so the 2000 to 2001 school year. And I left in January of 2007, right in the middle of 5th grade. So that was in the 2006 to 2007 school year. But I left in January of 2007, so right in the middle of there. And I still remember the theme song for St. Sherry's too. Once you sing it, you never forget it. We used to sing it every single time during the beginning of the school year, and I actually have it typed up right here. Here's how it went. Okay. St. Sherry's, St. Sherry's, Sainty Sainty Sherry's, teach us something please. Forever we be older, balder, young with scrappy knees. Our heads could do filling with some interesting funny stuff. For now they're barren, full of air, dead flies, and bits of fluff. So teach us stuff worth knowing, bring back what we forgot. Just do your best and we'll do the rest. We'll learn until our brains all rot. We used to sing that every single time, every single day during the beginning of the school year. Well, not every single day. Every single first day of the school year, we would sing that in the gymnasium. And you never forgot that song after the first time you had to sing it. But I thought it was really cool. But I have a lot of good memories from St. Sherry's school. But to be completely honest with you guys, the bad memories kind of outweigh the good memories. I always try to be positive about this kind of stuff, but in this case it's a little difficult. To start with, one of the worst memories I have of St. Sherry's was my mean first grade teacher. She was literally the worst first grade teacher, literally the worst teacher I've ever had in my whole entire life. Her name was Mrs. Lattice, and she was an old lady with a southern accent who was really mean to everyone, especially me. She did not like me at all. As you all know, I have a mild form of autism, and I actually had that my whole entire life, but it was undiagnosed back then. But I would often misunderstand things, and when she would give directions, I would misinterpret them and accidentally make a mistake and mess up. And she would always call me out on those mistakes, and she'd always humiliate me in front of everyone. She said, "Oh, Joe, you did this wrong, you're not listening. Are you stupid? You must be really stupid if you couldn't understand what I'm saying." Now, I was only 6 or 7 years old back then. I didn't know that a teacher could get in trouble for saying any of that, but she kind of knew that, and she took advantage of that. She'd always humiliate me and bash me in front of the classroom, and she'd always write my name on the board all the time just to humiliate me, and I just felt I'd always cry every single time I had to go back to her class and go back to school. And I'd be really upset, and I really wanted to be taken out of her class, but I never could get taken out of her class. I was stuck with her for the whole entire year. I was absolutely miserable back in first grade, and it's all because of her. Well, yeah, it is all because of her. Oh, and I couldn't stand her, Mrs. Lattice. And it was so hurtful how she'd always humiliate me like that. I don't think any teacher should do that to any student. If you see that a student is not understanding your directions right, and if you see that a student is not following directions right, you gotta go in and you gotta help them understand things, not humiliate them in front of everyone. Like, for example, this one time, for a class, we were talking about fair shares, like splitting stuff up into fair shares. Like, they had this one thing we had to do. It was a picture of a square, and had to pretend that the square was a sandwich, and this girl wanted to share her sandwich with 3 of her friends, and they wanted us to draw lines on how we would cut the sandwich to share it with her 3 of her friends. And whenever we did something wrong on a worksheet, Mrs. Lattice would make us stay in for recess until we did it right. And I thought, with my autism mind, my 7 or 6-year-old autism mind, I would always draw, I thought she said she wanted to share it with 3 of her friends. I thought she had to split it up into 3 pieces because it said 3 of her friends. So I was drawing lines trying to split it up into 3 pieces, and Mrs. Lattice kept telling me, "No, that's not it. You're not drawing it right. Go back and do it again." And I was like, "It's split up into 3 pieces. She's sharing it with 3 of her friends." And she says, "No, that is wrong. Do it again." And I was getting so frustrated. Eventually, after 3 weeks of staying in for recess, trying to draw the stupid lines on the stupid square, my adoptive parents came in and talked to her, and she was all nice and friendly and pleasant. We only saw her like that when she was talking to our parents. And she says, "Oh, well, she needs a piece for herself too, so it has to be split up into 4 pieces." And I was like, "What the hell? Why didn't you tell me that? I thought we had to split it up into 3 pieces, not 4. Dumb bitch." Brr. I didn't do that back then because I wasn't smart enough to say all that stuff, but I really wish I would have. Oh, I hated her. And also, it gets even worse. There was another boy in my class, my 1st grade class. His name was Kurt, and he looked a lot like Piper from the Scream series. He looked exactly like Piper from the Scream series. He had the glasses, and he had those small, beady brown eyes, and he had that pointed face, almost like my pet guinea pigs, except he was really mean. And when I was in 1st grade, because as you all know, I had like a premature growth problem back then, I was 5 feet tall when I was in 1st grade, and he was like probably 3'8", 3'6", so he was almost like literally half my size, and he would always bully me, but everyone always thought that I was bullying him, because whenever everyone was around, he'd always act nice. He'd say, "Oh, Joe, I want to sit next to you in class. I want to sit next to you at lunch. I want to play outside with you and be your friend." But whenever he was with me, he'd always bully me and make fun of how stupid I was, and he would say, "Mrs. Lattice is right. You're so stupid. You're so stupid. I hate you, Joe." And he'd always bully me, and no 1st grader wants to hear all that. So I always tried keeping my distance from him, and when Mrs. Lattice would make me sit by him during class, she knew that he was bullying me. She did. And I'd always say, "I don't want to sit next to him because he's really mean." Then he'd get all sad, he'd pretend to cry and everything. He says, "Joe's making up lies about me." And then Mrs. Lattice would always yell at me for it. And she'd go like, "How dare you? He wants to be your friend and you're being so mean to him." But he was bullying me the whole entire time. And she knew it was going on. Back then, I wasn't smart enough to know that she knew it. I thought she really didn't know that he was bullying me. But now, I know that she did know he was bullying me. And she got, I don't know what the hell her problem was. Somehow she got off on it, that I was suffering so much and that I was miserable so much during my 1st grade school year. But then, outside on the playground, he'd even follow me around and bully me. And during recess, we had 1st through 3rd grade outside on the playground, and there was this one girl who was in 3rd grade who I was friends with. She looked like Mona from Pretty Little Liars, and her name was Lisa. Yeah, she looked exactly like Mona from Pretty Little Liars. She was an Asian girl, and she'd always would run up to me, and she knew that Kurt was bullying me, and she knew exactly what Kurt was doing, that he was acting all sad to get the teacher's sympathy and that he would bully me. She was smart enough to know that. She'd always run up to me and she said, "Hey, Joe, Kurt wears makeup," and then I would just start cracking up laughing, and Kurt would get so pissed off and he'd start yelling at her, and she'd start laughing. I loved that so much. I miss those days. That was my favorite part of first grade, going out to recess and having Mona run up to me and tell me that Kurt wears makeup, and I'd always start laughing and making fun of him. Because, that was my shot at getting revenge, because he was always bullying me all the time, and was always getting the teachers to feel bad for him. And the teachers wouldn't do anything because they wouldn't believe me, because they always thought that I was bullying him by making up lies that he was mean. It makes me mad thinking about that, but it was more than 10 years ago, so yeah. But eventually, after that school year, Mrs. Lattice retired, and she left the state. She moved to Florida, that's what she was talking about. And I never heard from Kurt again because his parents took him out of St. Sherry's school, and yeah, so after that year, I never heard from neither of them again. I still heard from Lisa a lot, but I never heard from either of them again, Kurt or Mrs. Lattice. But just recently, like last month, I googled Mrs. Lattice's name, and here's the shocking part. I found out that Mrs. Lattice actually died of old age in January of 2013, and I wasn't sure if it was her or not. I thought it might have been a wrong age. I thought it might have been a wrong person. But I read her obituary, and it said that she was from Wisconsin, that she died in her retirement home in Florida, and it also said that her husband died of cancer in year 2002. Because I was in first grade in her class from the 2002 to 2003 school year, and she was talking about how her husband was sick with cancer, and eventually her husband died of cancer, and she was out of school for a whole week because of it, because she was sad that her husband died. And we had this really nice substitute woman. She was a young woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, and she was so friendly to all of us, and I liked her better. I was always happy when we had a substitute in first grade, because the substitute was always nice. Whenever I didn't understand directions, she'd come over and she'd walk me through it and help me understand them. And I always felt happier when we had a substitute. But yeah, and that definitely confirmed that it was her, because it even mentioned that she taught at St. Sherry's and that she retired from St. Sherry's after the school year of 2002 to 2003. And what shocked me the most was she was 98 years old when she died, and I was like, whoa, she was that old? Like, I always knew that she was old, because I always thought she was like 70 years old or something, but she died in January of 2013, and I was in her class from the year 2002 to 2003 school year, so that was 10 years before she died, 10 years prior to her death. So that means she must have been 88 years old when she was teaching all of us, and 88 years old when she retired. I was shocked. I never thought she was that old. I knew she was really old, but I didn't think she was in her late 80s. I always thought she was in her 70s or something. But, I thought about it, and I thought, Joe, you would be a bitch too if you were 88 years old and had to teach a class full of first graders. But still, how she treated me in that class and during that school year was completely unacceptable. Because I never did anything bad. I never acted bad during first grade. I always tried paying attention, always tried following her directions, but she was just a really mean teacher, and I don't know why she was so mean, too. There's a difference between being strict to help someone, and a difference between being strict to be malicious to a student, and she was definitely being malicious the whole entire time, so I don't like her at all, and to be honest with you, I really don't feel bad that she died either, because she wasn't brutally murdered or anything. She died of old age, and she was 98 years old. Another creepy thing is, she died on the exact same day I signed up for my new YouTube channel. Yeah, that's kind of creepy, isn't it? And I even have a theory on how she might have died, too. Like, the obituary said that she died of old age, and old age for humans usually means like a heart attack or something, because the body automatically shuts down after 90 to 100 years. But here's what I think might have happened, what I think might have caused the heart attack to come earlier, or at that time. She was probably thinking, you know what, I'm bored right now at this retirement home, so I'm just gonna Google one of my stupid students. Let's start with the last class I had when I retired. What was his name? Joe Winko. She probably typed that in on Google search, and one of my first videos I posted on YouTube was knifed, It's a video about a video about a killer on the loose in Wisconsin. Yeah, it was knifed. That was the first Sims 2 horror movie I posted on this channel. She probably found that video, and she probably watched that video, and she says, "Oh my god, Joe Winko made this? But I always thought that he was a complete idiot. And it got 30,000 views? Oh my god!" Yep, she couldn't accept the truth, that I really wasn't the idiot she made me out to be. And yeah. Well, that's just a theory. I don't think that really happened, but it'd be funny if it did. Oh yeah, and also, just for the record, St. Sherry's school closed down in year 2012. I heard that they got a lawsuit which made them go broke, and they had to close down the school, because they were a private school. They weren't getting fundings from, like, taxes or anything. I don't know what the lawsuit was for, but they closed down in 2012 because they were broke because they were sued from a lawsuit. So that's what I heard, that's what I know. So eventually they tore down the building down because it was out in the middle of nowhere. They tore it down, and I don't know what the hell they have there now. I think it's like a park. I think they still have the playground though, but I think it's like a park or something they have there now. But that just shows you nothing lasts forever. Even bad things don't last forever. But I don't really feel bad for Mrs. Lattice at all, because she was really mean, and plus she wasn't brutally murdered, she died of old age. Not to mention the fact that she was 98 years old, so she lived a full life, and made another kid's life difficult for 9 months. And, you know, right now, she's probably spending some time in purgatory, because that's what happens when you're mean to Joe Winko. So, yeah. And, you know, to this day, thinking about her still gets me angry, and I think if anyone would have knew about how bad she was actually being, how mean she was actually being, I think she would have been fired. Like, she wasn't physically abusive, but saying all that stuff to me and, like, targeting me, because she'd always, like, rip on me all the time and always embarrassing me in front of everyone and saying that I was stupid and wasn't understanding her directions. And she said, "Okay, class, today we're going to do this. I'm pretty sure Joe's not going to understand it at all." That's what she'd always say, and I would always be like, "What?" And everyone else would be laughing at me, and I'd always be sad because of it. And one time she even said that I wasn't interested in school at all. I wasn't interested in learning about school. And, well, duh, of course you're not going to be interested in learning about school if your teacher is making a complete idiot out of you in front of all your first grade classmates and embarrassing you. So I never liked first grade at all. I think every kid should, I think that every student should feel happy at school, like feel like they're being helped, know that people care about them and want them to succeed, but not tearing them down like that and embarrassing them in front of everyone, because that's really mean, especially when the students aren't purposely trying to be bad at all, like I wasn't. But yeah, I never liked her anyway, so yeah, may she enjoy her couple centuries in purgatory before she gets released into heaven. She deserves them too. So yeah, that's basically it for my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. Tell me what you thought of everything I talked about. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. And yeah, don't forget to like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and follow me on Tumblr too. So that's it. Peace out, people.